Oh boy. Did you do that? Sorry. Oh man. I turned it on and then turned it off and then I forgot about it. Okay, anyway, uh, Senator Duhigg will be talking to us about the two very recent legislative sessions.
Yeah, thank you, Bob, and thank you all for spending your Sunday here talking about politics in New Mexico. Um, so we just had the special on, and I'll kind of go backwards with the most recent. We just had the special on Tuesday, where we were dealing with the what's called the junior bill. These are appropriations for programs generally, as opposed to capital, that all legislators got a set amount to put towards projects that they felt were important for their communities. And the bill was vetoed by the governor because she had some concerns about how some of the funds were being allocated in there. And so really half the purpose of the special was to do a very similar version of the junior bill that changed some of the agencies, changed where money was going to. Some of the money moved from being non-recurring money to recurring or vice versa. And I apologize if there's a loud dog in the background here. My dog's in the backyard and he is very unhappy about it. So that was half the point of the special, is to get those junior funds out to our communities. The other half was to do some rebates and some economic relief, kind of an acknowledgement of some high costs of living that we're dealing with right now, that I'm sure you are all feeling just as much as I am. And so that's going to be $500 for an individual filer, $1,000 for folks filing jointly. That's going to go out in two payments. I believe I think one was July. I honestly can't remember when the payments are, but one is coming soon and the other is going to be towards the end of the summer. And then that's in addition to another payment, a rebate that was passed during the regular session that folks will be getting too. So for multiple filers, that's $1,500 that'll be coming to your pockets soon. So
someone mute all of the people on. Thank you.
Thanks. So, and that was short and sweet, and we were in and out in one day, which is exactly how a special session should work. During the regular session, the things that some really exciting legislation passed that I was involved in. I think one of the biggest ones that is going to change the lives for a lot of folks in New Mexico is ending predatory lending in New Mexico. We took the interest rate on small loans from 175% down to 36%. And then for loans of $500 and under, there's also a 5% origination fee that will never be more than $25. That's the highest it'll ever be. But this was essentially, that origination fee was the compromise that was struck in the House in order to get this bill through and get this issue done finally for New Mexicans. I'm sure you guys know, folks have been working on this for well over 20 years. And so that is really, I think, going to change the financial health of New Mexicans who are dependent on loans that can be accessed regardless of credit in a really significant way. Some of the other ones I'm really excited about was there's a group called WINGS. It's Working Interdisciplinary something. And the point of this group is to look at our guardianship and conservatorship laws and modernize them and fix the problems that we've seen lots of families having with them. And so the first piece of legislation to come out of WINGS was one that reforms temporary guardianships and conservatorships, because these temporary and these temporary situations, there should be, I think Justice Bacon said at one point, 8 of them statewide in a year. Instead, there's hundreds because the temporary process was being used improperly. And so this closed a bunch of loopholes, made sure that there's appropriate oversight throughout the process, and make sure that these temporary emergency processes are used for actual temporary emergencies. And that folks who might have issues with capacity aren't taken advantage of. And that their civil rights aren't really infringed upon before there's a real determination about their capacity. Because in all these temporary situations, you haven't even proven that someone doesn't have capacity at that point. You're taking away some pretty fundamental rights. So I'm really excited about that, and to see what else is going to come out of the Wings Commission going forward. We also passed an awesome fentanyl test strip bill. Fentanyl is the #1 killer of adults 18 to 44 in this country. It takes so little to kill folks. And we have a harm reduction program here in New Mexico, but when it was developed, black tar heroin was what we were dealing with. And so it's really just a needle exchange. Black tar heroin isn't what's killing people now. Fentanyl is, and they're smoking it more than they are shooting it up. And so, and up until now, it's been illegal, and actually probably up until July 1st, it's illegal for folks just to have the test strips that would tell them what's in the drugs that they're taking. And what we found is that when people have access to that information, they change their behavior in response to it. So someone who is an addict, they might still use those drugs, but they make sure they have Narcan on hand. They might use it more slowly and use less. They might make sure that they have someone there with them. And all of this is accomplishing harm reduction. And we also know that folks who are involved in these harm reduction programs, if they do then want to seek treatment, they are much more likely to have access to the resources they need and to be successful in that treatment. And so this is a bill that will literally save lives in New Mexico, and will help deal with this opioid crisis that we're dealing with all over the country. What else? So one of the bills that I worked on a lot ended up being the election omnibus bill. I had a bill that, it was such a cute little 2-page bill. As it started out, it was to protect our election workers the same way we currently protect voters. And then there were 2 other election bills that were going. One was SB 6, and this was a bill that had a lot of really important reforms that our county clerks really need. And 95% of that bill was really good, important stuff, and 5% of it was bad stuff. There was originally language in it that could have created a path to invalidate thousands of absentee ballots in a way that would automatically benefit Republicans, because so many more of our absentee voters in New Mexico are Democrats, that if you're able to just invalidate a whole swath, you're going to invalidate more Dem votes than you are our votes. And in CD2, it would have made a really big difference. So there was 95% excellent, wonderful, great stuff, 5% of bad stuff. And that ended up killing SB 6. By the time it got over to the House, it was in the House Judiciary, it was dead because of that 5% of bad stuff. There was also SB 8, which was referred to as the Voting Rights Act, New Mexico Voting Rights Act. And this had a number of expansions of voting rights and protections for voting rights. And it got killed in the Senate. It got filibustered trying to get off the Senate floor. And so it was dead there. My bill, that cute little 2-page bill to protect election workers, was the only one that was getting through, and it was in the House and in House Judiciary. So they took the 95% of really good stuff in SB 6 and about 80% of the stuff in SB 8, the least controversial parts of SB 8, and put it all into my little bill that went from a 2-page bill to like a 270 something page. So shockingly, people didn't love that, particularly. And so we stayed up the last night of the session, stayed up all night to get that off the House floor, got it over to the Senate with 2 hours and 10 minutes to spare. and they were already filibustering. I went running in there and they were already filibustering it, and so it died. But we will probably see something very similar to what that final version of my bill looked like, that election omnibus bill, coming back in the next regular session. And with that, I'll stop talking and let you guys see if there's any questions.
Okay, thank you, Senator Duhigg. There's only one question in the chat that I saw. It's from Terry Storch. She's asking why weren't the rebate amounts staggered or means tested?
You know, there was a lot of discussion about that, about whether there should be a cutoff for who would qualify. And that's because that's what we did with not taxing Social Security too. You know, we made it so that we were giving that relief to the folks who we thought would need it most. There was a decision made on this one that it should go to everyone, and I was not part of that decision-making process on that bill, personally, beyond being a voting member. So I don't really want to speculate on why, but it's definitely it was just a policy choice that was made in this case.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions? What a timid bunch. Sounds like your dog has something to say, though.
He does not like being excluded.
Okay, well.
Looks like Roxanne has a question.
Yeah, hi. I wasn't aware that New Mexico had any kind of filibuster until this session. Could you tell me how it works, and has it been there forever and I just wasn't aware of it? What's the story?
Yeah, so and I'll start by saying we really need to reform our rules in this around how we use the filibuster, because the intention of a filibuster is to make people be there and stay. And how it's used in New Mexico, or actually it's a call of the Senate, rather. Sorry, I'm mixing up all the procedures I want to change. So we have two things that you probably saw a lot of this time. It was the filibuster and the call of the Senate. Call of the Senate is supposed to make people come. Right now it's used for people to walk. And filibuster is used, we actually saw a real procedural abuse of the filibuster at the end of this session. And it's not, and I think it's an abuse, but let me make clear, the rules make it totally allowed. This was allowable under the rules. Because the filibuster started on announcements and miscellaneous, there was no procedural mechanism to stop it. So I said I ran into the chamber with 2 hours and 10 minutes left in the session. That's because we do have a procedure after 2 hours to stop debate. Now, it's not one that's often used in the Senate. They use it a lot in the House, and there it's 3 hours. It is not used in the Senate because it's not considered gentlemanly. Personally, I think it's Senate that has been operating under coalition control for the last 20 years. Maybe their idea of what's gentlemanly or not should change now that we are not under a coalition. So running in there, I was planning on stopping debate at 2 hours and having 10 minutes to get that bill passed. But because Senator Scher started on announcements and miscellaneous, there was no procedure to be able to interrupt debate. So we really need to revise our rules in the Senate and write them in a way so that they can be used fairly by both the majority and the minority, but that they can't be used for this gamesmanship that then subverts, the will of the people. We had the votes on that bill. We had 10 minutes. It could have happened, but because of gamesmanship, it didn't. And so I'm looking at those rules and how to change them. I also want to say, because Senator Scher has caught a lot of flack for that filibuster, and I want to say that's also his job. Like it is the only tool the minority has is time. and wasting time and playing out the time. And he is the talker amongst them. And I actually get along very well with Senator Scher, and we'll make it a point to continue doing so, because the more we can relate to each other as human beings, rather than just in a partisan way, the more we're going to get stuff done for New Mexico. So Scher is great at talking, but it's not all him. Like he was just playing his role. That was an institutional move that happened there, not him alone.
Quick question: do we think that there will be much impact on the coming election this fall because the voting rights omnibus bill did not make it through?
So where it's going to be impacted is in absentee ballots, because there were some provisions, and these were temporary provisions that were adopted in 2020 to make the processing of absentees better because of the pandemic. And so what we wanted to do was, but those expired. So we wanted to permanently adopt those provisions. Were they in place for this election, it would make the processing of absentee ballots better. No question. Is it gonna really, really mess things up? No, it just makes it more of a pain in the butt for it just makes it not as smooth as it could be.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any move to have a bill about making all of our voting absentee, as they do in other states?
There's certainly been folks who have talked about that. And I think that we are slowly moving more and more in that direction. I will say it's my opinion that New Mexico should never be fully absentee, because especially a lot of tribal voters who don't have the kind of mail service that we living in this urban area enjoy, they would be really significantly disadvantaged by that. And so I think we should always have some combination of in-person voting for those who want to do so, and especially where it's more important to do so, and mail-in voting. But I hope that we get to be more and more mail-in voting for voters for whom that works, because it's just a great way to vote. It gives people an opportunity to really think about their vote, do research, and especially when we deal with things like pandemics, it sure is handy.
Yeah. Okay, well, unless there's any more questions, thank you very much, Senator Duhigg, for visiting us and sharing your impressions of the legislature. It's very helpful.
Sure. Thank you all. I look forward to your next meeting.
Okay, our next section of the agenda will be, we'll hear from the two candidates for the New Mexico State Treasurer. They are Heather Benavidez and Laura Montoya. I've originally planned to give them 5 minutes each, followed by Q&A, but I think we've got some fat in the meeting schedule. So if you'd like to speak, each one of you for 10 minutes, that's fine. But if you only have 5 minutes of stuff to say, that's fine too. So up first would be Heather Benavidez. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me okay? I always do okay, thank you, wonderful. I'm always concerned about my audio, but especially because I'm battling some kind of sinus infection or something, so my voice is weird. But thank you all for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to run for state treasurer and have this opportunity. And as you all know, I are aware, I'm certain that there's never been a woman in the office of state treasurer before, so this is historic no matter what happens. But I'll give a little bit of a history, tell you what I'm doing now currently, and then I will talk about some of my priorities if I am to be elected. And so I was born in Albuquerque, raised in Valencia County, graduated from Belen High School, raised in a, have to be honest, very poor house. We had a large family, and college wasn't an option. I'm the first in my family to attend. And so I wasn't able to attend until I had a child, and I ended up being a single mother. And so that was a struggle, but I'm very glad to have had the opportunity to go. So I have a BA in political science and Spanish, as well as a Master of Public Administration from UNM's School of Public Administration, which is something that I share with Treasurer Lewis that I'm very proud of. But my husband and I reside here in Albuquerque now. Our daughter's away at college. She's almost 19. She'll be 19 this weekend. And he's a Metro judge, Judge Joshua Sanchez. And we are just really proud to live here and to be public servants. I started my public service back in 2003. I had just returned from maternity leave and was told that I was getting laid off. And so that was a very scary and an uneasy time, but quickly I started working for the 13th Judicial District Court, which is Cibola, Sandoval, and Valencia counties. And while working there, I put myself through school and I did many jobs. I was a clerk, I was an evidence tech, I was a jury manager, trial court administrative assistant. But the last job I held there was very important to me. And it was a project manager for a pilot project that we created to help individuals facing foreclosure stay in their homes. And we actually were able to do that through a grant that we received through the AG's office in the amount of $250,000 that we had applied for, simply to create this program. And so what it did was everybody who filed or was filed against for foreclosure in the 3 counties, they automatically got put into this program and they could opt out if they didn't want to be a part of it. But it was a mediation program where we tried to, at all possible, keep people in their homes. And we had a very high success rate. And if the person couldn't save their home, then they were able to move without having a deficiency judgment, to have somewhat of a clean slate. And so I'm proud to have started that program. And I'm very proud that it's still going strong today. But that's where my love for public service started, helping people at their time of need. In 2017, I started working for the state treasurer's office, and I was hired there specifically to implement ABLE New Mexico. And through talks with the treasurer during that time, he knew that I had created the foreclosure settlement facilitation pilot project in the 13th. And so he figured, she's got the project management experience. Let's see if she can do this in the financial sector. And so I went to work for the state treasurer's office and worked with the state of Ohio to bring the ABLE program to New Mexicans. I'll talk a little bit more about that, but basically it's savings accounts for individuals with disabilities so they can save without losing their benefits. And so it's a wonderful program. We started the foundation in 2017, implemented in 2018, and the program's been going strong ever since, and it's grown and it's wonderful. During that time, I was also responsible for other things that we did in the office, our financial literacy, our forfeiture program, our alternative dispute resolution program, and working with the loss prevention folks. And so it was really wonderful. During the time that I was working for the 13th and working with the state treasurer's office, I was a municipal judge in Rio Communities. And I was initially elected to be municipal judge in Rio Communities back in 2013 upon incorporation of the city. And so I'm very proud to have been the first judge elected. And I'm very proud that I worked for 2 years as a judge without a salary because we simply had no money as a new city. But we started with a donation from the Rio Communities Association in the amount of $1,000. And when I left, or when I resigned my position, we had a budget of up to $6 million. And so it doesn't seem like a lot, but Rio Communities is pretty small. So I feel like we really did well growing there. I was also appointed to serve as a magistrate judge by Governor Lujan Grisham after an extensive vetting process. And I'm very proud to have held that position as well. And so I've gone from protecting the public's safety, or the safety of the public, to protecting your money. And so I feel like I'm in a good position to do that. I was made chief of staff in the state treasurer's office, and I'm happy to hold that position and work alongside Treasurer Eichenberg, whose endorsement I have in this race, as well as Deputy Treasurer Collins, to support the amazing staff of 27 individuals that we have that make up our cash management team, budget and finance, operations, IT, compliance, special programs, and just make sure that your money is invested prudently. And so we work hard every day to maintain consistent transparency and accountability. And if you haven't done so, I would encourage you to check out our website, because anything you'd ever want to know about the state treasurer's office is listed there. And all of our meetings are public, except our executive staff meeting that we have every Monday morning. And so that's just a little bit of history about me and what I've done. And I just want to go through really quickly and talk about some of my priorities. Am I to be elected as your state treasurer? So where ABLE's concerned, which are the accounts for individuals with disabilities, we're currently working with CYFD to create a partnership. We've already created the partnership, but what we need to do now is make sure that the accounts are put into the hands of the children who need them. And so this is historic because we'd only be the second state in the United States to do this. The only other state to have done this is South Carolina. And so what we would do is go through the children who are aging out of CYFD, find out if they are eligible for an ABLE account. And then if they are receiving a lump sum payment from SSI, we will be able to open the account and put that payment in the account for them so that it can be managed there so that they don't lose their benefits moving forward. And so we're really excited to start that. Actually to implement it because we've been working on it for 18 months now. So hopefully we're getting closer to actually making that a reality. I would like to provide a tax rebate or tax deduction for contributions to ABLE accounts. This is done all over the country. I know we can make it work here, and it incentivizes contribution to ABLE accounts so that our individuals with disabilities can save not only their earned income or any money given to them, but people will also want to gift them money. I would like to work to prohibit Medicaid payback. So if an individual with disability has one of these accounts and they have received, or Medicaid has paid bills for them during the time that they've had the account, in the unfortunate event that they pass away, Medicaid can enact a state recovery and take some of that money back. And so we would like to change that to make sure that the people who contribute to these accounts, because the account is in the individual's name, it's their money. So it's their money in life and death. We want to make sure that that money stays with them so that it can be used for anything that's outstanding after they've passed away, including funeral and burial bills. And let's see, it's done in Florida and Virginia. I know it's something that we can do there. However, I will say that Medicaid has not enacted a state recovery yet. So we're not certain that that's ever going to be an issue. 2 more minutes. Okay, wonderful. So the public bank I'm in favor of, and I'm ready to sit down and have the conversations needed so that the state treasurer's office can become on board with that. I'm happy to be endorsed by Patricia Roybal Caballero, who did sponsor the bill. I believe it was House Bill 75 this past session, even though it didn't get very far. I would like to see a satellite office opened. So currently we're in Santa Fe, and I think it would be helpful to have another office here in Albuquerque and maybe even in Doña Ana County. And that's because we do a lot of other things other than just invest and protect the money. We have financial literacy programs. We've got our ABLE account. We have our New Mexico Work and Save that we're going to be implementing. And so we actually have the need for people to come in and sit with us so we can advise them in the different programs that we have. And so I think it would be helpful if there was easier access to the office. Let's see, I would like to explore child development savings accounts, which will go in tandem with the financial literacy education that we've provided and want to work to continue, because it doesn't help if our kids understand finances if they don't have the resources to apply the knowledge. And so I will stop talking now, but I appreciate the time, and I will take any questions you might have. Thank y'all.
Okay, thank you. I see a couple of questions in the chat and others. As soon as I get through these two, then think of what you want to ask. Marianne Dickinson is asking, can you tell us if you would try to transition state investments out of fossil fuels?
And do you want to pose that question to me or both of us? And do you want to wait for my opponent to speak first?
Well, it's for both candidates. We'll ask Laura the same thing.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's important. Although I will say that, and I know that everybody knows this, it fluctuates between 30 to 40% of our revenues. And so it's a huge portion of our economy here in New Mexico. And it's ideologically, it's a good thing to do, but it's also, we have to take into account, probably the hundreds of thousands of people who are in these jobs, and make sure that as we transition to, as we divest and also transition into renewable energy, that these people are not forgotten. And so while I do have my own ideas about it, it is something that is so much larger than just me and just the state treasurer's office. And so, of course, I'd be willing to sit down with all of the stakeholders and work toward that solution. And I think that it's something that's going to happen probably incrementally, which I know isn't always, and obviously we are 40 years behind the climate fight. I know that, but it's something that I'm definitely in favor of doing, and doing my part as the state treasurer.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions for Heather Benavidez?
There's a question, if you don't mind. It says, currently there are no banks in New Mexico that administer ABLE accounts. Will New Mexico be able to keep to keep ABLE in the state anytime soon? Okay, so that's an interesting question. And yes, there are no banks that provide ABLE accounts. I believe that Fidelity will. And so somebody can go into Fidelity and they can open an ABLE account, and that's going to be an ABLE account through Fidelity. It has nothing to do with ABLE New Mexico. There are accounts all across the United States. Some are in state, some are statewide or nationwide. ABLE now in Virginia provides in-state and nationwide account owners the ability to have these accounts. And so there's a lot I can talk about on this. The reason, and thank you for allowing me to explore this question. The reason New Mexico does not have the accounts here in New Mexico is because when the legislature back in 2016 passed the ABLE Act, told the state treasurer's office to create and maintain the program, they did not give us an appropriation to do that. Now, we started doing exploration at the time because we wanted to make sure that the individuals in New Mexico who are eligible for these accounts had access to them immediately. We decided to go around to states that already had existing programs to see if we could partner with them. Okay, so cut to the state of Ohio. When they passed their ABLE Act, their legislature gave them $3 million to create and implement and maintain their own program, as long as they, with the condition that they partner with other states to increase the sustainability of the program. So while I know it may seem that it's not advantageous that these accounts are not here in New Mexico, it really is, simply because we didn't have the money at the time, although we do now, to create and maintain the program. We wanted to make sure that our individuals had access to this immediately. Now, partner states is not unusual. Most of the states in the country are partnered with a consortium. There are two large consortiums. There's the Stable Account Program, which we're a part of, which is the largest and strongest. And then there's the ABLE National Alliance, which a bunch of other states are a part of, which is good, but it's not as strong as we are. So currently we have 250 million in assets, and we've got 13 partner states. And here in New Mexico, our account owners, the average account for a non-working individual is $7,100, and for a working individual, it's $17,000. And so when you look at the fact that an individual who doesn't have an ABLE account can never have more than $2,000, but now that we've been able to create a workaround to provide these accounts, they can save money for their future without losing their benefits. And $7,100 is wonderful. $17,000 is wonderful. Whereas previously, these individuals could never have $2,000, and more importantly, had to rely on other people to save their money for them, which, you know, can be questionable at times. And so I thank you for that question, because it really allows me to get into the history of why we did what we did. And I think that if we're ever in a position to create our own program in New Mexico, we might be now, and it's definitely something that we need to explore. And Roxanne, I see your hands up.
Yes, thank you. In the past, when I've heard you speak, you were less enthusiastic about public banks.
Mhm.
And I wondered what problems you saw then and what has happened if you're to change your mind, if in fact your opinion about that process has changed.
Okay, well, thanks for the question, and thanks to allow me to clarify. You know, I don't know, and I understand that you picked up on what you thought was me being less enthusiastic. And it's not that I'm not enthusiastic about it, but I'm also, you know, as a former judge and as a current parent, I'm very risk averse. And so as a judge, I was used to not making a determination until all the facts were in front of me. And then me being the judge, I was the person who had the final say. And so that is really how my process goes. Now, I realize as the state treasurer, I'm not the final say in this specific legislation, and I understand that, but I am still very risk averse. So if it seems that I wasn't enthusiastic, it's simply because I just want to have all the answers before I decide whether I want to get behind something. And so I think that that's prudent, and I think that that's a smart way to answer questions wherein I feel like I don't have all of the information. So I wouldn't say that my enthusiasm has changed, because I've always thought it's a great idea. I do, and that's something that I've said consistently. But what's changed for me, and I'll have to say that I'm not speaking out against, but I'm speaking differently than what the feeling is in the state treasurer's office, which please understand that I am employed there, okay? Is that one of the main concerns was using the public bank as the fiscal agent bank. And so currently our fiscal agent bank is Wells Fargo. And I know we all have our feelings about Wells Fargo, and it's valid. But we provide such extensive banking services to such huge agencies here in New Mexico that making a provision in the Public Bank Act that it become the fiscal agent bank pretty much overnight just isn't feasible because of all of the very sophisticated services that Wells Fargo provides to these agencies that I don't think the state bank would be able to do. Now, that's actually been taken out. And so that was my main concern. And so that's why, if it seems like my opinion has changed, that's the main reason. But across the board, I've always thought it's a great idea. I think that the people involved with AFLEP have done a great job. Their research is impeccable. I think that it's a great opportunity for New Mexico to really shine, considering there really are no other public banks in the state other than North Dakota and then in American Samoa. But it's something that I would definitely, and I've already spoken to Sarah and to Angela and told them I am willing to sit down and be a part of this, and in so much as I can as the state treasurer. And the state treasurer is one person, but I definitely won't stand in the way. So.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt here. I think I messed up the format because I want to make sure that Laura Montoya gets an equal opportunity to speak about things. So thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
And now Laura Montoya, the other candidate, will be our next speaker. Laura, you'll have 10 minutes plus, say, about 5 minutes just for Q&A, just for you. And then when that's done, then it'll be Q&A for both of you, okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, hello, everyone. I am very happy to be here with all of you. I am Laura Montoya. I am a candidate for state treasurer. I'm asking you for your vote and your support and your trust in me. Let me give you a little bit of information about my background and then where the race is at. So I'll start with the race. Right now, we just finished our petition signatures in January, February 1st. They were due to the Secretary of State. We got more than double what we needed. And then we needed to move into the state convention process. And I'm very proud and thankful to everyone who voted for us. And we had nearly 60% at the state convention and are #1 on the ballot. I'm your union endorsed candidate. I've been endorsed by LIUNA, Local 16, plumbers and pipe fitters, Local 412, carpenters, operating engineers, iron workers, and the Building Trades Council. And I'm very proud of that because this entire race has been about bridging the gap of inequity between rich people and poor people. So I live in Rio Rancho, Sandoval County. Many of you may know that I was the Sandoval County treasurer, elected 2 terms, 8 years as Sandoval County treasurer. And Sandoval County is your next door neighbor. We have really a microcosm of New Mexico. We have more pueblos and native land than anywhere else in the state. We have unincorporated areas as well as the village of Corrales, the town of Bernalillo, Placitas, and then of course our big city, Rio Rancho, where I live. I'm originally from Las Vegas and Mora. My father is a Department of Transportation road supervisor who retired from the state. He's a paramember. My mother is a retired just recently last year after 30 years of being an educator for the Las Vegas City Schools. She started off as a Spanish teacher and moved on to be a counselor, which really was trying, especially during the pandemic. She retired due to health reasons, and we're very happy to have her at home. My brother is a state fire marshal. He's a paramember, and my sister is a small business owner and a psychotherapist. So we have been here all of our lives, many generations. I'm very grateful for the values that my parents taught me about, the value of a dollar, the value of a handshake, doing what's right, even when it's hard. And I'm very blessed to have my parents married now for 46 years. I think this year it's going to be 46 years. And so I'm very grateful to have my parents. So I started out at New Mexico Highlands University. I was one of the youngest Latina women working for a US Senator, Jeff Bingaman. And back then, if you had been in politics for a long time, you know that both Jeff and Pete Domenici really were about serving all New Mexicans. It wasn't about D or R, it was about getting things done. And that was really the type of mentorship that I had there and at the New Mexico legislature, where I served in several different capacities in the House and the Senate for many years. I then moved on to work in the state treasurer's office. I worked for Douglas Minch Brown, and many of you who may have followed back in the day, there were 2 people who were convicted and went to prison. And right after, the governor at the time had a committee that appointed Douglas Minch Brown to be the treasurer until James B. Lewis came in. And at that time, I was able to assist with the cash handling processes and procedures, the internal aspects of the office to make sure checks and balances were in tune, and also helped with the FBI investigation as the main point of contact for the state treasurer's office. I'm very grateful to have his endorsement. Moving forward, I moved to Sandoval County right when I was working in the treasurer's office. And years later, after being very engaged in the Democratic Party here and helping get several people elected at the state level and at the local level, I was told it was my responsibility to run for county treasurer because of my experience in finances. So I have my BA in poli-sci and psych, my master's degree in public affairs. Since then, I have over 600 credit hours in investment, business management, economics, and management of staff. And I also have my certified treasury official, certified public manager, and certified public official. I currently still teach classes for both county and city employees and elected officials on anything dealing with property taxes, finances, investments, and anything in that array of government. As the Sandoval County treasurer, I was the youngest Latina woman or woman in general in New Mexico, being a treasurer managing money on behalf of others. And so in some people's eyes, there was 3 strikes against me. I was brown, I was young, and I was a woman. And so I've always known to CYA in multiple ways and make sure that I always had to learn everything a little bit, be a little bit sharper at all of it. And so I was the legislative chair for the Treasurer's Affiliate. And in that capacity, we got over 20 bills passed. They helped our senior citizens. They helped remove tax loopholes, saving millions of dollars. We helped diversify the investment portfolio, both for Class A counties, which is your large counties, as well as the state treasurer's office, which really worked out great during the pandemic because they were able to use supranationals as one of their investment tools. And in the county level, we added in commercial paper A1P1, corporate, and supranationals. And so having worked in that capacity with several of my colleagues, I am very honored to have received many endorsements that I think speak to the volume of the work relationship that we've all had, whether it has been working with the Pueblos and the Navajo Nation with missing and murdered Indigenous women, or the gerrymandering that occurred with the Sandoval County Commission. I have Delegate Amber Crotty, Delegate Daniel So, and Delegate Mark Freeland, who have come out to endorse. Wilhelmino Yazzie from the Martinez Yazzie case has come out to endorse, and that's because of my financial literacy plan. You know, I've heard that there is some financial literacy in the treasurer's office, but the reality in New Mexico is that we are 47th in the United States in financial literacy. That data has shown proven both in Think New Mexico, or you can just Google it. And when you have people who are not educated or do not have the understanding or good, healthy relationship with finances, and you also have bad policies like what we had that Katy Duhigg, Senator Duhigg had been working on the predatory lending, it's a bad combination for really hurting working families. And so myself, I had worked on that legislation with several others for about 10 years. Other people have been working on it for over 20 years. It's not okay for us to have loans at 175%. Even 36% is high, but that's the military standard. So it was able to be equivalent to be able to get legislators to get on board. When we have financial literacy in our schools, which I know the governor this year has decided to help us in putting that in the core curriculum K through 12, but we need to have it at the legislature so that no matter who the governor is, we will always have financial literacy as a priority in New Mexico. Many of us grew up paycheck to paycheck. Many of us did not have a savings account. Many of us didn't understand what stocks or bonds were. And so if you can teach people that before they go into the workforce, before they decide to have their families or go into college or community college or the trades, that will help set them up better for success. And I think that the Treasurer's Office has a great opportunity to be able to do something about that and use the role of protecting, collecting, investing, distributing, and reporting, which are the 5 functions of the State Treasurer's Office, utilizing that role to also promote and help our schools to be able to educate people with financial literacy. The other part that I'm very proud of in the Treasurer's Office is that we had a 99.37% collection rate on our property taxes. Why is that important? Well, it's important because that means we're making everybody pay fair and equitably. And that's really what our tax structure should be about, because when everyone's paying their fair share, then everyone gets to pay less and the value or the amount that people pay decreases. A lot of people always focus on Senate Finance and House Appropriations, but the reality is that House tax is just as important because of the revenues that can be developed based on the tax policies that we have. I had the honor of working with Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senator Lujan when we were dealing with the Trump tax reform and educating people on how bad that impacted working families. The idea of what I would like to do in the Treasurer's Office is to bring integrity to the office, to make sure that we have the same clean audits that I've had in the county, keep that consistently going. I really want to work on the state bank. I am your only candidate that did stand up at the New Mexico legislature in support of the state bank, and I've been very consistent through this entire process. Senator Jeff Steinburn, who is one of the people who has been a sponsor of that bill, has also endorsed me. And we worked on it. We helped improve it. You know, I've talked to Angela and others about the collateralization aspect. What I think we have a tendency to do in New Mexico is we have a knee-jerk reaction to say no, instead of looking at opportunity of how do we get to yes? How do we bring all of the stakeholders in to make sure that we're doing our very best? And so today I want to ask you for your vote. We have less than 1 month before early voting begins. Those of you that would like to participate, phone bank, door knock with us, join our team, we'd be happy to have you. We have won in all but 5 counties, and I'm very proud because rural communities matter just as much as the cities. And I'm trying to make sure that all Democrats know that they matter in this campaign for state treasurer. And I'll go ahead and stop there.
Okay, thank you very much, Laura. And now we'll have a Q&A just for Laura Montoya. And we can go up to 10 minutes. That was my mistake. I'm very sorry, but giving Heather Benavidez 10 minutes to answer questions wasn't fair. I should have held the questions too.
That's okay, Chairman. I can be very brief because I know it's been a long call. So I know one of the questions was on the state bank, and that one and the infrastructure bank I've stood up in support of, and that's on the record and has been consistently. As it relates to the ABLE program, the ABLE program is one of 5 small programs within the Treasurer's Office, but that's not part of the $10 billion that's in the Treasurer's Office that is managed. The money is in the Treasurer's Office in Ohio. And so I don't usually talk about it as much because of the fact that general obligation bonds, severance tax bonds, the local government investment pool, that funding source is within the Treasurer's Office with the investment team. The financial advisor who works as an independent contractor as a part of the request for proposal with the Treasurer's Office is the same financial advisor that won the RFP in Sandoval County that I worked with, in which we did have a great investment portfolio that made millions of dollars in the 8 years that I was there. Even during the pandemic, we had a really good solvent portfolio. As it relates to the investment council, you know, the treasurer is on 14 boards and commissions. I think the 4 most important that impact families directly are the State Board of Finance, the State Investment Council, PARA, Public Education Retirement, and ERB. My father and my brother and myself are PARA members, and ERB, which is sadly, you know, really a lot lower than our PARA, is our teachers, our educators, the people who we should really be investing in because they invest in our future by working with our children. And so I think it's very important that you understand local government, state government, and federal government. You understand economic outlook. You understand unintended consequences. You know, working at the New Mexico legislature as an analyst and as a committee secretary for House Judiciary and many other capacities, you really learn how to focus on legislation in a positive way, in a negative way. What are the unintended consequences? How do you avoid them? What stakeholders do you need to bring to the table? Who do you need to help consult with? You know, for example, including our union members. All of those things are really important when making decisions on behalf of other people's hard-earned dollars. And then the last question was, I think there was one, oh, investments in fossil fuel. So in the treasurer's office, it's a lot more safer. It's based off of 61010. So you can only invest in things like mortgage-backed securities, treasuries, agencies. It has a lot less yield, but by statute, it's safety first, then liquidity, and then yield. One of the main goals that I have in the treasurer's office is to really expand the local government investment pool. I believe we can include our tribal government because it's already in statute. So tribal, county, and municipal folks to be more engaged in that pool of money so that they can make more money for their communities and send it back to them. The pool is a great program because if you don't know Treasury as well in a smaller community, you don't have to. The treasurer's office will help you. They get you your reports every single month. The money is invested in a very safe manner so that you're not in fear of losing your money, as did happen in the 2009 market crash for a lot of communities in New Mexico, which is why I think we're having to build back that relationship of trust. With the State Investment Council, it's a higher risk yield. And so it's really important that when we're talking about what we're going to invest in, including in the state bank, that we're investing in New Mexico and in products and in people and in things that we believe matter to us according to our democratic values.
Okay, are there any other questions for Laura? I'm not seeing any.
I don't think there's any other ones.
Okay, well, I guess then we'll wrap this up with a Q&A for both candidates. And let's keep in mind that this is not a debate, this is just a forum. We don't want the candidates asking each other's questions. So if anybody has any questions for one or other or both candidates, now's the time.
I failed to mention Devontae Watson is on here. So if anyone would like to join us for phone banking, please contact either myself or Devontae. I put our website that has a volunteer section on there, as well as my phone number for anyone who has any questions or would like to talk to me offline.
And Robert, if you don't mind, so Ann Ziegler wrote, for both candidates, have you or would you sign the No Fossil Fuel Money campaign pledge? And I just want to state that I did say that I would do this in my application for the Environmental Justice Caucus. And so I'll go ahead and say that again here today. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Guess we've worn everybody out. Okay. Well, I want to say thank you both to Laura Montoya, and thank you for Heather Benavidez. It's great to have you come and speak to us like this. We really appreciate getting to know our candidates a little bit better.
Thank you so much, Chairman. Thank you all.
Just want to lift up really quick, Laura, before you go. Laura, I know there's a question from Janet Harmon. Can you answer the same question that Ms. Ziegler asked earlier? The question now. For both candidates, you will be on the right, SIC. So do you both support the SIC efforts to redefine renewables and invest in hydrogen economy?
Who's the question? What was the question? I'm sorry, I'm looking through the chat.
Sorry, it's I believe it was from Ann Ziegler.
Yeah, it's at 344. It says for both candidates, you will be on the SIC. So do you support the SIC efforts to redefine renewables and invest in a hydrogen economy? Is that what you're thinking of?
Yes.
Okay.
I know
So-
it's changed quite a bit, so I'd have to see what they ended up putting as the definition. But it's really important that you're diversifying your portfolio, because then you have less risk within the portfolio overall, which is taxpayer dollars.
And I don't believe I answered that question. I thought it was the sign the no fossil fuel money campaign pledge, which I've already answered, but I would be happy to, let's see, what is the question? You'll be on the SIC. Do you support the SIC efforts to redefine renewables and invest in hydrogen economy? I'm actually going to say that I don't have enough information about the hydrogen economy, because I've heard what I've read, there are good things about it and there are not so good things about it. And so I'd like to do more research before I can, say definitively. And if you guys have information that you want me to know, either for or against, please let me know. But investing in renewables, absolutely. I need more information about hydrogen though.
I just know that there was a question, it was a different question. So this one is for Laura specifically, but it had to do with, I believe, divesting from fossil fuel specifically. And I'm just double checking the chat too to make sure I didn't miss that.
Okay, Laura, did you answer the question about the no fossil fuel pledge?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
And Corrales, Sandoval Indivisible has endorsed me as well. And I just heard yesterday Retake Democracy has decided to be supportive of me as well. So I think that comes from all of the work I've done against fracking in Sandoval County, as well as the awareness to Chaco Canyon when I was running for Congress.
Okay. Any other questions that we didn't get? I mean, it was confusing at first because people were asking that we ask it of both candidates before we heard from both candidates. I think some of those might have gotten lost in the fog, but if you had a question that we haven't asked both candidates, please let us know.
I think you did a great job, Chairman, and I think we answered everything. And then our contact information's in the chat, so by all means, don't hesitate to call me.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you all for coming to the meeting. We just have and thank you for taking your time. I know you guys were in Galisteo yesterday, was it? And now you had to come here today, so we really appreciate your making the effort to talk to us, plus talk to the whole world. It's got to be tough. I can't imagine campaigning. I'm sorry. It just looks like it's too hard. Okay, and now we can, if there's no other questions for the candidates, we'll move on to just any questions you have about the ward boundaries, about my hairstyle, anything. Okay,
Your new representative endorsed me also, Miguel Garcia. I've worked with him at the legislature for a long time, so I hope you guys enjoy him.
Okay.
Your new relationship.
Are there any announcements for the group? I'll make one first. Our next meeting will be Sunday, May 8th. Same time, same station, 3 o'clock. Any other questions or announcements?
Bob, I'm just gonna share some links in the chat. So what we're gonna do. So if anyone knows any renters out there, I'm part of the Renters Coalition of Albuquerque, and we're doing this survey just trying to ask like what renters' needs are specifically. And there's a lot of ranges out there in terms of high rent rates, evictions, all that good stuff. And so the RCA, as we call them, not to be confused with the old record company, is starting to reactivate, and we'll probably have like a tenant organizing meeting very soon. So if you know anybody that is running, is facing some issues or anything like that, or just like to take a survey, take like 5 minutes. This also has a link to our Facebook group, which is predominantly for renters, by renters, and just working through just to organize more effectively with groups of people across the city. And then lastly, I'll add this link too. So I'm the co-host for Impact and Coffee, which is a nonprofit networking group. And so if you're interested in just finding out more about what's going on in the nonprofit sector and around community, you're welcome to join us this Tuesday at 9 o'clock over Zoom. I believe we have, some of you may even know Paula Getz, but she is with New Mexico New, and she's going to be talking a little bit about what their program is, what their story is on Tuesday morning. So you're welcome to join us on Tuesday morning at 9 if you have time. But that's all I had. But I open the floor for anybody else that might have some announcements, anything they want to share, or any questions they might have about today's meeting.
Well, I guess that's a wrap. Unless somebody has something they want to add. Once again, thank you all. We've enjoyed seeing you, and I very appreciate making the time on a beautiful Sunday. A little windy, but otherwise it's really nice out. So thanks for joining our ward meeting.
Thank you all. It's been a pleasure.